The Wheel of Time is a series of high fantasy novels written by Robert Jordan. Originally planned as a trilogy, The Wheel of Time came to span 14 volumes, the first one releasing in 1997 and the final installment releasing in 2013. I'm personally a big fan of The Wheel of Time, and I started reading the books back in 2016. I've loved what I've consumed, and I've rallied for its continued franchise development over the years. The Wheel of Time franchise at this point is 27 years old, and one that is fraught with controversial adaptation attempts throughout its lifespan. However, back in 2018, it seems that fans would finally get what they've been clamoring for with the announcement that Amazon and Sony were coming together to produce a Wheel of Time television series adaptation. An ambitious goal that would look to synthesize the decades of storytelling to the streaming space. With the success of Game of Thrones at the time, this felt like a dream come true, and the right series to emotionally fill the high fantasy void left in Game of Thrones' wake. However, as soon as Season 1 began airing, the series was met with a great deal of scrutiny and backlash from some of the changes that were made. Just to be clear, I'm fully aware that adapting 14 books that were written in the late 90s for a different medium through a modern-day point of view is a Herculean task. There was no way they could have adapted the series without making some compromises to the narrative. Season 2 was received with just as much backlash and suggested that the show was on a downward trajectory. However, Season 3 aired recently in 2025 and was a major sign of optimism for the series. For my money, Season 3 was the best of the 3 seasons and was the first sign of course correction and gave fans something to look forward to. Unfortunately, at the time of this recording, The Wheel of Time has not been greenlit for its 4th season, and it would seem that this adaptation of the series will no longer continue. There are many reasons that led to this outcome, and I do plan on outlining those here, but I also want to take a moment to lament why this is so damaging to the Wheel of Time fandom. For starters, this Amazon adaptation had a gargantuan budget allocated for it, and for 3 seasons had a very large audience. Now that the adaptation is dead in the water, it's hard to imagine us fans getting a separate adaptation in the next 5 to 10 years because this one was so prominent. In order to attempt a big screen or television adaptation again, fans will need time away from this version of the casting and storytelling. It already seems like a miracle that we were able to get the adaptation that we did get. To assume that we would get another soon would be optimistic to say the least. So why didn't the show work? The main reason most fans would tell you is that they made too many changes from the source material. I agree with this claim to a point, but again, I can't fault the showrunners too much because to do a one-to-one adaptation would be impossible at this point. For me, the biggest reasons why this show never found its footing exist more behind the scenes than in front. The COVID years, coinciding with part of the production schedule for this show and during the release, had a significant impact on the final product. Not only had the team not finished filming Season 1 when lockdowns and quarantines were being put in place, but they also had to overcome delays like the writer's strike in later seasons. A massive problem they had to overcome was one of their leads, who played Matt, had to leave the series under mysterious circumstances, causing major plot holes and changes in Season 1. Those changes would reverberate in Season 2 as they had to recast one of their main characters. In hindsight, I do love the new actor that they got for Matt, and I think he does a great job realizing the character, but the sudden change certainly didn't help fans get on board with an already controversial list of changes that were made. For all that went wrong with the series over the course of its 3 seasons, there are a few things that I think that it really got right. The top of that list is the casting. I think they found fantastic actors to play each of the roles. Rand, Moraine, Lan, Perrin, and Matt all felt like home runs in my eyes. Even when the actors didn't physically match the image that I had in my head while reading the series, they quickly won me over in their characterization. Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine didn't immediately work for me, but by the time we got to Season 3, I came around to the actors and their performances. Rosamund Pike as Moraine is the best thing that this Amazon adaptation has ever done. Not only is she an Oscar-nominated actress, but she seems committed to seeing this vision through. In a lot of ways, Moraine is one of the most important characters to get right because she lays so much of the groundwork down and world building for the audience. Around the board, I feel like the acting was well done by all, with the standouts being Moraine, Perrin, and Lan. The visuals in this series also give the fans a lot to love. Bringing the world of the Wheel of Time to life visually is no easy task. Not only is it set in a fantasy world, but the power system is so broad, characters can wield flames in one moment, and in other moments conjure invisible strings of power. There were, however, a few moments, especially in Season 1, that were less than impressive visually, but overall I think the power system, set designs, and backgrounds were all adapted very well. As I mentioned before, Season 3 was the first consistently good season. The other seasons had moments of greatness, marred down by controversial changes and questionable decisions on the showrunner's part. In the first 2 seasons, some poor decisions were made, but also some production hurdles that were out of their hand. If the show hadn't been canceled and we got more seasons that were as good or even better than Season 3, then when all was said and done, we would have an amazing adaptation and series on our hands. Moving forward, there is so much more potential left out there for the Wheel of Time. While I unfortunately don't see a live adaptation in our near future, the franchise is more popular now than it ever has been. And Brandon Sanderson's name being attached to the project is a major potential plus. Considering how popular and prominent he has become in the fantasy book writing space, the fact that he did conclude the series, I think, is something that we can point to as fans as hope that this series will get more attention in the future. In my opinion, the number one potential path forward for the franchise would be in animation, more specifically in the form of anime. If you look at any of the videos on this channel, you'll see that I firmly believe that we are in an anime renaissance. In the West, anime is the most popular it's ever been, and the public's desire for fantasy seems to be at an all-time high. An anime adaptation for The Wheel of Time would give the production team a much wider scope of freedom to tell their story. Not being limited by what you could physically film or being subjected to the availabilities of actors gives any production more power to execute the story that they want to. I also think that anime would be an appropriate medium to honor the dark tone that the series is known for. I would love to see Lan battling Trollocs in a samurai anime style, while Rand and Moraine get to express their use of the one power through flashy anime aesthetic. It feels like a match made in heaven. Animation would also allow for a separate enough feeling from the Amazon adaptation that could feel like its own distinct product that wouldn't be marred down with the history of the Amazon run. It feels like if we approached it through an anime, we could see this in the next 2 to 3 years rather than waiting for 5 to 10 years for a live action adaptation. As a fan of the series, it really is disappointing to see it have to come to an end when it felt like it was finally just finding its footing. I was really starting to feel optimistic about where the series was headed and was telling everyone I knew to keep up with it as well. That now that it seems like our dreams of a live action adaptation are over, I think it's important that we as the fans push for some way to keep the franchise alive, and hopefully we can get the entire story adapted at some point. At the end of the day, The Wheel of Time is a story that I love and will continue rallying for whenever there's chatter of more potential content on the way. If the live action series was somehow able to come back at the same quality that it left off from, that would be a dream come true. But as of now, I truly believe that an anime adaptation is not only what the series needs, it's what the series deserves. I believe I speak for the entire fandom that we hope to see The Wheel of Time again in the future, but for now, we will be happy for what we had and not dwell on what we lost. I guess it's true what they say. The will weaves as the wheel wills. But anyways, what did you think about the Wheel of Time Amazon series adaptation? What do you think about the series in general? What do you think is our best path forward for getting the Wheel of Time adapted? Or should we just leave it in the annexes of the pages? I want to know what you think, as always. Drop it down in the comment section. Let's get a conversation going. And if you would like to see more Wheel of Time content on this channel, let me know because I would love to dive into that. I feel like I'm gearing up for a reread on the book series at some point here. So if you want to see that in the future, make sure to let me know. As always, my name is Darius Cook, and remember that I love you.